The gun trembles in my hand. Mateo Cruz, the man I've destroyed in courtrooms for 3 years, stands bleeding in the storm. I'm Sienna Vance. The gavel. 43 consecutive wins. Unbeatable prosecutor. Until tonight. A 10-year-old witness sleeps in the next room. She can expose a pharmaceutical conspiracy. The killers hunting her just found us. Federal agents are dead. We're framed for murder. Mateo's hand moves toward the gun, not to fight, to lower it. "Sell the lie, counselor," he whispers, "or we all die." The cabin door explodes inward, 10 days earlier. The Seattle courthouse smelled like old wood in desperation. Rain streaked the floor-to-ceiling windows of courtroom 4, turning the city beyond into a watercolor blur of gray and muted neon. Sienna Vance stood at the plaintiff's table, spine straight as a blade, charcoal Armani suit pressed sharp enough to draw blood. The jury foreman cleared his throat, a wet, nervous sound that echoed in the sudden silence. She didn't need to hear the words. Victory tasted like black coffee, bitter, familiar, earned through 60-hour work weeks and a social life that fit in a thimble. Her opposing counsel, some kid fresh from Harvard with his father's connections and his mother's law degree, fumbled his briefcase with shaking hands. Designer leather slipped through his fingers, hit the floor with a crack like breaking bone. Sienna clicked her pen once. The sound ricocheted off marble walls like a judge's gavel. A tic she'd developed in law school. Her therapist called it a control mechanism. Sienna called it efficiency. She'd won 43 consecutive cases, 43 families made whole, 43 corporations held accountable. 43 times she'd proven that the system worked if you were smart enough, ruthless enough, prepared enough. Not because she was brilliant, though she was, top 2% of her Columbia class, but because she never trusted instinct. Only evidence, only facts, only the paper trail that couldn't lie even when people did. Her mentor used to say she had ice water in her veins. He meant it as a compliment before the heart attack took him at 52. Sienna kept his nameplate on her desk as a reminder. Excellence requires sacrifice. The foreman spoke, his voice cracking halfway through. "We, the jury, find in favor of the plaintiff, Sienna Vance representing, in the matter of..." She stopped listening. The numbers mattered more than the names. 8 million in damages, 3 million in punitive. Enough to rebuild a family the defendant's negligence had shattered. Enough to make the firm's senior partners smile at her in the hallways instead of simply nodding. Sienna nodded back to the jury. No smile. Smiling suggested relief, and relief suggested doubt. She never doubted. Just the mechanical satisfaction of a machine that functioned correctly, producing expected outputs from measured inputs. Across the gallery, the defendant's family wept. The wife buried her face in her hands. The teenage son stared at Sienna with eyes full of hate. She'd seen that look before, 43 times. It never got easier, but it got familiar, and familiar was manageable. She packed her files into her leather messenger bag with surgical precision. Each motion practiced 10,000 times until muscle memory replaced thought. Depositions in manila folders, evidence tabs color-coded, pens aligned in the side pocket. The kid lawyer approached, loosening his tie like it was strangling him. Probably was. "Miss Vance, you didn't even break a sweat. How do you..." "Preparation doesn't sweat, Mr. Hendricks." Sienna snapped her bag shut. "Neither does competence." She walked past him without waiting for a response. Her heels clicked against marble, a metronome keeping time with her heartbeat. Outside the courtroom, her assistant waited with her coat and umbrella. Sienna took the coat, left the umbrella. "Miss Vance, it's pouring." "I'm aware." She pushed through the courthouse doors. Seattle rain hit her face like cold judgment, soaking through her carefully styled hair in seconds. Most people ran. Sienna walked. Let the water remind her she was still flesh underneath the suit, still real even if she didn't feel like it anymore. Her reflection in a courthouse window looked back at her. 29 years old, already senior associate, already untouchable, already alone. Your Honor, my client can't afford another continuance. His daughter needs medical treatment that requires— Counselor Cruz, I've heard this speech before. Judge Patterson's voice dripped with the exhaustion of a man who'd sat on the bench for 23 years, watching the same tragedies play out in different faces. 3 times this month alone. Mateo Cruz planted both hands on the scarred defense table, leather jacket creaking in the silent courtroom. The public defender's office didn't pay for suits, didn't pay for much beyond the bare minimum: stack of case files, burned coffee, fluorescent lights that hummed like dying insects. The kind of lights that cast shadows under everyone's eyes, made even the innocent look guilty. He'd been wearing this jacket for 6 years, bought it the day he quit the police force, the day he decided being right mattered less than being on the right side. Then hear it a 4th time, Your Honor. Mateo's voice roughened, dropped into that register his academy instructors used to call controlled aggression. Because if you don't, a 10-year-old girl loses her father to a system that's supposed to protect families, not destroy them. Miguel Reyes made one mistake. One. He drove with an expired license to take his daughter to the emergency room. That doesn't make him a criminal, it makes him a father. Judge Patterson's gavel hand twitched. The law doesn't account for good intentions, counselor. You know that. Then the law's broken. The words came out before Mateo could stop them. Professional suicide, his boss would call it later. Worth it, his conscience would answer. Patterson's face flushed red. Counselor, you're dangerously close to contempt. I'm dangerously close to giving a damn, Your Honor. Different thing. The gavel cracked down. Sound like a gunshot. Motion denied. Mr. Reyes will serve his sentence as prescribed. We're adjourned. The courtroom emptied like water down a drain. Bailiffs first, then the court reporter gathering her steno machine, then the prosecutor with his perfect suit and perfect smile that said, another win, another bonus. Miguel Reyes stood at the defense table, shoulders curved like a broken bridge. Mateo gripped his client's shoulder. We'll appeal. I promise you will. You promised my daughter I'd be home for her birthday, Mr. Cruz. Miguel's voice came out hollow, empty. How do I explain to a 10-year-old that promises don't matter? Mateo had no answer. The system had stripped him of good answers 3 years ago, left him with only stubborn momentum and the refusal to quit even when quitting made sense. He stood alone at the table after Miguel was led away in cuffs. Stood there in the empty courtroom that smelled like floor wax and furniture polish and broken promises the janitors couldn't quite scrub away. His case files sat in a cardboard box. 16 active clients, 42 pending motions, 0 budget for investigators or expert witnesses. The courthouse halls echoed with footsteps that weren't his. Lawyers in expensive shoes hurrying to expensive lunches, discussing billable hours and partnership tracks. Mateo shoved through the doors into Seattle's perpetual drizzle, jacket collar turned up against weather that matched his mood. His motorcycle sat in a lot, rain beating on black metal like tears on gunmetal. A 1985 Triumph Bonneville he'd rebuilt himself in his grandmother's garage, piece by piece, learning that broken things could be made whole if you cared enough. He kick-started the engine. The roar drowned out the voice in his head that sounded like his old partner from the force. You can't save everyone, Cruz. Stop trying. But someone had to give a damn, even if it cost him everything, even if it already had. Sienna's office door slammed open. No knock, no warning, just Gerald Morrison, senior partner, looking like someone had told him the firm's malpractice insurance just lapsed. Conference room, now. He didn't wait for an answer, didn't even make eye contact, just turned and walked, expecting her to follow like a first-year associate. She saved her document, a brief on pharmaceutical liability, ironically, and stood. Her corner office on the 42nd floor usually felt like a fortress. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay, custom desk imported from Milan, framed degrees arranged with military precision. Today it felt like a cage she was being summoned out of. The firm's corridors usually hummed with controlled chaos. Paralegals rushing between departments, associates arguing over conference room bookings, the constant white noise of ambition grinding against billable hours. Now it sat silent as a tomb. Every attorney she passed stopped typing, stopped talking, watched her walk by like she was a prisoner heading to execution. Their expressions said what their mouths wouldn't. You're about to get destroyed. The main conference room occupied the southwest corner of the floor. 20-person table, leather chairs that cost more than most people's cars, view of the sound that made clients sign checks without reading the fine print. Today it held 4 people. Gerald at the head of the table, 2 FBI agents with badges clipped to dark suits, faces carved from bureaucratic stone, and Mateo Cruz, slouched in a chair like he owned the place, that infuriating smirk plastered on his face. Sienna stopped in the doorway. Her pulse spiked, just once, just for a second, before training took over. What is he doing here? Saving your life, apparently, Mateo said. He leaned back, boots crossed at the ankle, leather jacket open to reveal a faded Public Enemy t-shirt. Try not to sound too grateful, counselor. Agent Reeves, the older FBI man with silver at his temples and eyes that had seen too much, stood, extended his hand. Miss Vance, I'm Special Agent David Reeves. This is Agent Chen. We need you both. There's been a development in the Meridian Pharma case. Sienna's blood went cold, professional cold, the kind that made her dangerous in depositions. She shook Reeves' hand, firm grip, 3 seconds, release, and sat across from Mateo, put the conference table between them like a demilitarized zone. Meridian Pharma, she said, voice level, always level. I prosecuted their CEO 2 years ago, Gregory Halston. Illegal drug trials that killed 16 people. He's serving 25 to life in federal prison. The company collapsed, scattered. It's over. It was over. Agent Chen pulled a tablet from her briefcase, slid it across the table. Until 3 days ago. The screen showed crime scene photos, 3 bodies. These Sienna recognized from the trial, witness coordinator who'd helped prep testimony, forensic accountant who'd traced the money, junior attorney from the AG's office who'd filed the initial complaint. All dead. Mateo leaned forward, elbows on knees. The smirk was gone. What's the connection? They were cleaning house, Reeves said. And according to our intel, there's one more witness, a child, Maya Reyes. The name hit Mateo like a physical blow. His jaw tightened. Maya. Sienna glanced at him, saw something crack behind his eyes, something human underneath the arrogance. The rain outside suddenly sounded like bullets hitting glass. Sienna's mind worked like a courtroom, organize facts, analyze evidence, cross-examine assumptions. Mateo Cruz as a partner? Logically impossible. The man operated on instinct and reckless compassion, threw procedure out the window whenever it suited him. Everything she'd trained herself to eliminate from her decision-making process. But logic also said 3 people were dead and more would follow unless she adapted. The conference room walls closed in. Air conditioning pumped Arctic cold through hidden vents. Fluorescent lights too bright, making the crime scene photos look even more clinical, even more final. Reeves spread additional images across the mahogany table. Autopsy reports, ballistics analysis, digital forensics showing the victim's final communications, professional hits, military precision, the kind of operation that costs 6 figures minimum. They're cleaning house, Reeves said again, as if repetition made the nightmare more real. Meridian Pharma didn't collapse. It metastasized. New leadership, offshore accounts, shell corporations. They've been rebuilding for 2 years, and our intelligence suggests they're targeting anyone who could testify about their new operations. Mateo leaned forward, his leather jacket creaking in the silence. Maya Reyes, 10 years old, lives 3 blocks from an abandoned Meridian facility in Renton. She saw executives dumping medical waste into the creek behind her school, drums marked with biohazard symbols. She took pictures on her phone because she's doing a science project on water pollution. He pulled out his own phone, slid it towards Sienna. The screen showed a girl with dark braids and braces, holding up a muddy smartphone like a trophy. Behind her, barely visible through chain-link fence, men in suits supervising a truck marked Waste Management. Her testimony could reopen the case, Mateo continued, expose new crimes, environmental damage, corporate fraud, maybe more deaths we don't know about yet. I've been prepping her for 6 months because she's brave enough to tell the truth. Agent Chen pulled up a laptop screen, rotated it so everyone could see, which makes you both high-value eliminations. Ms. Vance, you prosecuted the original case. You know their network, their methods. They can't risk. Maya barely escaped because I taught her to run first, ask questions later. I've had her in a different motel every night since, one eye open, waiting for them to find us again. The room fell silent except for the air conditioning and the rain outside, and Sienna's pen clicking like a countdown timer. She studied Mateo, really studied him. The dark circles weren't from late nights reviewing case law. They were from sleeping in truck cabs and cheap motels, scanning every face in every lobby, teaching a 10-year-old girl that the world was hunting her and the good guys couldn't protect her. Where is she now? Sienna asked. With a friend who doesn't ask questions. Hidden, but not for long. These people have resources we can't match. Money, connections. They've already corrupted federal custody. They're hunting with the system on their side. Reeves stood, paced to the window. His reflection looked tired. Which is why we're here. Off-book operation, no paper trail, no federal resources. Just you two and our support until Maya testifies at the grand jury in 10 days. 10 days. Sienna did the math. 240 hours. 14,400 minutes. Every one of them a potential death sentence. The rain outside sounded less like water and more like a ticking clock running down. The convoy's taillights vanished into fog, like red eyes closing. 3 FBI SUVs cutting through Washington rain toward Tacoma. Bulletproof glass, armored chassis, agents armed with Sig Sauers and protocols that promise safety. Destination, secondary safe house in Tacoma, FBI vetted, locked down tighter than a federal prison, with guards rotated every 6 hours so no one could be compromised. Reeves had walked her through the protocols himself. 27 pages of security procedures. Nothing left to chance. Except chance always found a way in. Bad luck is just insufficient data. That's a fancy way of saying yes. Before Sienna could respond, before she could explain that words mattered, precision. Sienna's training evaporated. Her hands wouldn't work. The seatbelt release button might as well have been in another dimension. Outside, the figures raised weapons, rifles with scopes, the kind that didn't miss. Agent Chen fired 3 shots through the windshield. Glass spiderwebbed. A figure dropped. Not enough. Mateo wrenched her door open. His hand closed around her wrist. Rough, calloused, real. Move, counselor, now! For one suspended second, she saw her reflection in his dark eyes. Saw terror, saw humanity, saw everything her 43 wins and corner office and perfect record couldn't protect her from. Then the rear vehicle exploded, and the world turned to smoke and screaming metal. Mateo hauled Sienna through the smoke like she weighed nothing. Maya tucked under his other arm, rabbit clutched against his chest. Gunfire cracked overhead. Bullets hitting pavement, hitting metal, hitting the place they'd been standing 2 seconds ago. The highway smelled like burning rubber and spilled gasoline and cordite. Not random thugs, trained killers with tactics and equipment and the kind of funding that meant somebody very powerful wanted them dead. Maya's small hand found Sienna's, squeezed tight. The girl wasn't crying, wasn't even breathing hard, just running like Mateo had taught her, efficient and silent, conserving energy for the marathon nobody wanted to run. Here, Mateo skidded to a stop behind a massive cedar trunk. His truck sat 30 yards ahead in a logging turnout, hidden behind fallen timber and blackberry brambles. Rust-eaten Ford from the early 90s, more primer than paint. The kind of vehicle people's eyes skipped over without registering. Perfect camouflage. "That thing actually runs?" Sienna gasped. "Better than your designer shoes did." He shoved Maya into the extended cab. "Get in, now." Sienna climbed into the passenger seat. The interior smelled like coffee and old leather and cedar from the cab freshener hanging from the rearview mirror. Maps covered the dashboard. Washington, Oregon, British Columbia, all marked with routes and safe stops and locations he'd scouted beforehand. This wasn't panic preparation. This was military planning. "You knew," Sienna said. "You knew the safe house would fail." "I knew trusting the system was suicide." Mateo turned the key. Engine coughed once, twice, roared to life with a sound like controlled violence. "Been in this business too long to believe in bulletproof glass and background checks." He didn't use headlights, navigated by memory down roads that barely qualified as roads, logging trails, service paths, routes that didn't appear on GPS. Trees whipped past like black bars of a cage. Mud sprayed the windshield. The truck fish-tailed around corners that would have flipped a civilian vehicle. Mateo drove like he'd memorized every pothole and turn, like he'd spent weeks preparing for exactly this scenario. In the rearview mirror, flames lit the highway. Fire trucks and ambulances would arrive in minutes. Police would cordon off the scene. News helicopters would broadcast footage nationwide. And somewhere in that chaos, the killers would vanish like smoke, leaving no evidence except bodies and questions nobody could answer. "They'll think we did this," Sienna said, her lawyer brain finally rebooting, connecting dots. "We fled the scene. We're the only survivors. They'll frame us as the attackers." "Already have." Mateo's jaw tightened. "That's how this works. Make the targets look like criminals. Easier to hunt us when everyone's looking." Maya spoke from the back seat, voice small but steady. "Are we the bad guys now?" Neither adult answered. The rain kept falling, the tires kept spinning, and somewhere behind them, the hunt continued. Sienna's brain finally rebooted 20 miles outside Olympia. Questions lined up like evidence in closing arguments. Where are we going? How long can we run? What's the end game? But every answer led down paths that ended in blood and fire. So she stayed silent, watching Mateo drive like he'd memorized every back road in Washington state. Probably had. A gas station appeared through the rain. Marnie's Gas and Grocery. The kind of place that still had analog pumps and handwritten signs advertising bait and beer. Mateo pulled in behind the building, killed the engine. 2 other vehicles sat in the lot. Minivan with Montana plates and car seats visible through dirty windows. Sedan with a Hertz sticker, probably some sales rep driving between client meetings. Normal. Civilian. Exactly what they needed to blend with. "We can't stay on the move forever," Sienna said. Her hands had finally stopped shaking. "They'll track the truck. Facial recognition at gas stations. We need to disappear." Mateo turned to face her. Rain dripped from his hair, tracked down his jaw. "Right now we look exactly like what we are. 3 people running for their lives. Professional. Desperate. Wrong." "What are you suggesting?" "They're searching for 3 people traveling together. 2 adults, 1 child. Lawyers on the run. They'll expect us to act scared, make mistakes." His eyes flicked to the gas station. 3 figures emerged, Rough types, leather vests and cigarette smoke, eyes that scanned the parking lot like predators checking for prey. One pointed toward Mateo's truck. His friend reached for his phone. Sienna's pulse spiked. Mateo, family road trip. He said it fast, urgent. Husband, wife, daughter. Happy family taking the scenic route to Portland. We stop at that motel across the street. Pay cash. Act normal. Normal? Sienna laughed. Sharp, wrong. The sound someone makes when their entire worldview has fractured. I don't do normal. I do calculated. I do prepared. I don't improvise. Then learn fast, counselor, because those guys are about to make us. The three figures started walking toward them. Casual, unhurried. The kind of casual that meant they'd already made a decision and were committed to seeing it through. Mateo's hand cupped Sienna's jaw, rough palm against her cheek. Trust me, just for 10 seconds. We're a couple. We're in love. We're everything they're not looking for. His eyes asked a question his mouth didn't. Sienna's mind screamed objections. Unprofessional, dangerous, compromising. But her body leaned in before logic could stop it, because survival trumped protocol, and staying alive mattered more than maintaining boundaries. Mateo kissed her. Not gentle, not romantic. A kiss designed to sell a lie. Desperate and possessive and wrong in all the ways real kisses were right. His other hand gripped her shoulder, angling her toward the window so anyone watching would see a couple who couldn't wait until they reached the motel. Sienna's mind went blank. Static. Error message. Then instinct took over. She kissed him back, sold the performance. Her fingers found his jacket collar, held on like he was the only solid thing in a world that had dissolved into smoke and rain. His stubble scraped her chin. He tasted like coffee and danger. 10 seconds, that's what he'd said. Felt like 10 hours. When they broke apart, the three men were walking away, laughing about something else. Crisis averted. Mateo's voice came out rough. Good, that was effective. Tactical, Sienna corrected, because giving it another name made it less real, made it something she could file away and forget. Maya's voice drifted from the back seat. Are you two done being weird? I really have to pee. The rain kept falling. Sienna's heart kept pounding. And somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed like the soundtrack to her life falling apart. The cabin sat at the end of a dirt road that had stopped being maintained sometime during the Reagan administration. Cedar and hemlock pressed close, branches scraping the roof like skeletal fingers testing for weakness. The Pacific Ocean roared somewhere beyond the tree line, close enough to hear its constant rhythm, too far to see through the fog that rolled in with evening. Oregon coast, 50 miles south of Astoria, middle of nowhere. Perfect. Mateo unlocked the door with a brass key that had tarnished green. The hinges screamed. Inside smelled like dust and cedar and memories nobody had disturbed in years. Sienna stepped through, Maya's hand still gripping hers tight enough to hurt. One main room, kitchenette with a cast iron wood stove that looked older than Sienna. Couch upholstered in fabric that might have been floral once, but had faded to abstract shapes. Through a narrow doorway, one bedroom, double bed with iron frame, quilts folded military precise at the foot. No electricity. Oil lamps sat on rough-hewn shelves. This wasn't a safe house. This was a time capsule from a century that believed in isolation and self-sufficiency. My grandmother's place, Mateo said. He moved through the space like a ghost returning home, touching surfaces with careful reverence. The windowsill, the mantel above the fireplace, the door frame separating kitchen from living room. She left me this when she died. Never told anyone. No records, no paper trail. Not even my mom knows it exists. Sienna did the math, calculated probability. No phone service, no internet, no way to contact the FBI or coordinate defense strategy. No way for them to find us either. He lit an oil lamp, Warm light pushed back shadows, made the cabin feel less like a prison and more like a sanctuary. We have 10 days until Maya's grand jury testimony. We survive that long, she tells the truth. This ends. 10 days, 240 hours, infinity, in a cabin with one bed, and the man she'd spent 3 years destroying in courtrooms. Maya explored the bedroom, her rabbit tucked under her arm like armor. Sienna watched Mateo check the windows, testing locks, examining sight lines, moving with military precision that said he'd done this before. He'd been a cop once, undercover. The rumors said something broke him during a deep cover operation, made him stop trusting badges and protocols and the system he'd sworn to protect. She'd never asked, never cared. He was the opposition, the enemy, the man who made her work harder than anyone else because he fought dirty and clever and with a passion that made juries forget facts and remember feelings. Now he was the only thing standing between her and a bullet. What? Mateo caught her staring. Nothing. Sienna gestured vaguely at the room, at him, at the situation that defied all logic. Just processing. Process faster. He pulled his phone from his pocket, thumbed to a news site. His face went pale in the lamplight. Sienna crossed to him. The headline hit like a physical blow. 3 FBI agents dead in highway ambush. Attorneys sought for questioning. Below it, their photos. Sienna's professional headshot from the law firm website. Suit pressed, smile calculated, eyes that promised competence. Mateo's DMV photo from 6 years ago. Younger, angrier, before public defense had rounded the sharp edges. Witnesses report Sienna Vance and Mateo Cruz fled the scene with a minor. Authorities urge public vigilance. Both are considered armed and dangerous. The article continued, federal manhunt, roadblocks, amber alert for Maya. Quotes from legal experts discussing conspiracy charges and federal prosecution, and sentences measured in decades, not years. Sienna's voice came out hollow. They think we killed them. Those agents. No. Mateo's jaw tightened. They're making people think we did this. Easier to hunt us when everyone's looking. When every gas station attendant and motel clerk and passing driver sees our faces and picks up the phone. The cabin suddenly felt smaller, the walls thinner. Outside, the forest pressed close, full of watching shadows and eyes that might belong to owls or men with rifles. Maya's voice drifted from the bedroom, matter of fact and devastating. Mr. Cruz, there's only one bed. Mateo met Sienna's eyes across the lamplight. Welcome to paradise, counselor. The oil lamp flickered, the ocean kept its rhythm, and somewhere out there, the entire country was hunting them. The ocean's rhythm never stopped. Push, pull, push, pull, like a heartbeat that had beaten for millennia and would continue long after everyone in the cabin turned to dust. Night fell like a curtain dropping on a stage. Maya slept in the bedroom, door cracked open, nightlight, an oil lamp turned so low it barely flickered, casting long shadows that danced on wooden walls. She'd fallen asleep clutching her rabbit, face pressed into Mateo's jacket that he'd balled up as a pillow because the cabin didn't have extras. Sienna sat on the couch, still wearing her torn suit pants and Mateo's oversized flannel shirt that smelled like cedar and smoke. Her feet were bare, blistered from running through forest in designer heels. She'd washed them in the hand pump sink, watched dirt and blood spiral down the drain, and wondered if metaphors were really that obvious or if exhaustion was making her poetic. The wood stove crackled. Mateo stood at the window, watching the tree line like he expected shadows to coalesce into armed men. He hadn't sat down in 3 hours, hadn't stopped moving except to check on Maya, or add wood to the fire, or pace the small cabin like a caged animal, remembering what freedom tasted like. Sienna's mind kept replaying the kiss, the way his hand had felt against her jaw, rough and certain, and nothing like the careful way she lived her life. It meant nothing. Performance, survival tactic. But her lips still remembered the pressure, the heat, the way he'd tasted like bad coffee in desperation. "You should sleep," she said. "I'll take first watch." "Watch for what?" Mateo didn't turn from the window. His voice came out flat, empty. "We don't have weapons. No communication. No backup. If they find us, we're dead." Optimism. How refreshing. He finally looked at her. The lamplight carved his face into planes of shadow and exhaustion, highlighted the scar that ran along his jaw, thin, white line from his ear to his chin, the kind you got from fighting, not accidents. "You think this is funny?" "Not aggressive, just tired. I think if I don't make jokes, I'll start screaming." Sienna's control cracked. Hairline fracture in porcelain, barely visible, but terminal. "I prosecuted a case, did my job by the book. Now 3 agents are dead, a child is in danger, and I'm wanted for conspiracy to commit murder. My career is over. My reputation is destroyed. So forgive me if gallows humor is the only coping mechanism I have left." The silence stretched. The fire popped. Something moved outside. Deer, probably, or raccoon, or men with thermal scopes and suppressed rifles. They both froze, listened, heard nothing but ocean and rain and their own hearts pounding. Mateo crossed to the couch, sat down, not close but near enough she could smell cedar and rain on his jacket. "I know you did your job. You always do. That's why they're terrified of you. They're hunting me because I'm a threat? They're hunting you because you're brilliant and methodical, and you don't quit until you buried your opponent 6 feet under with evidence and precedent." He said it without inflection, just fact. "That case you won against Meridian, you didn't just convict one CEO, you exposed an entire network. Supply chains, bank accounts, political connections. People lost money, power, status. They want revenge served cold with legal justification." Sienna pulled her knees up, wrapped her arms around them. Defensive position she hadn't used since childhood, when her father's law partners would visit and she'd hide behind furniture, listening to them discuss cases she didn't understand but knew were important. "And you?" She looked at him. "Why are they after you? Really?" "Because I taught a scared little girl that truth matters more than safety." Mateo's voice went soft, dangerous soft. "Because I told her good people still exist, that the system can work if enough people refuse to look away. And I'll be damned if I let her down now, if I let them win by making her too afraid to speak." Outside, something moved in the trees, definitely bigger than a deer. Both of them went silent. Mateo's hand moved to his thigh where he kept the knife. 5 seconds. 10. 20. A branch snapped, then silence. "Probably nothing. Probably." "We should sleep," Sienna said, voice barely above whisper. "Both of us. Tomorrow we figure out how to survive this." Mateo nodded, but neither of them moved. The couch suddenly felt like the only safe place in the world, the only solid thing in a life that had dissolved into smoke and rain and impossible alliances born from necessity, not choice. The fire burned low, the shadows grew long, and somewhere in the forest, something, someone, kept watching. Morning arrived without asking permission. Sienna woke on the couch, neck cramped, still wearing Mateo's flannel shirt. Gray light filtered through windows thick with salt spray and years of neglect. The wood stove had died sometime in the night. The cabin felt like a refrigerator lined with cedar. She sat up. Every muscle screamed protest. Running through forests in heels, apparently, had consequences even expensive lawyers weren't immune to. Mateo stood at the stove, coaxing fire from kindling and yesterday's newspaper. He'd changed his shirt, different flannel, same worn soft texture. His hair was damp. He must have used the hand pump outside, washed in water cold enough to make your bones ache. The domestic normalcy felt surreal, like they were playing house instead of hiding from killers. Coffee? Mateo's voice came out rough. Morning gravel. Please. Sienna stood, winced. Where's Maya? Still sleeping. Kid's exhausted. He poured instant coffee into 2 chip mugs, added water heated on the stove. Handed her one. Cream or sugar would require a grocery store, and grocery stores have cameras. Sienna wrapped both hands around the mug. Warmth seeped into her palms. So we're prisoners, just in a prettier cell. We're survivors. There's a difference. She studied him over the rim of her mug. In the morning light, he looked older, harder. The scar on his jaw stood out white against stubble he hadn't shaved. His hands had small scars too, knuckles that had been split and healed wrong, fingertips with calluses from manual labor. These weren't lawyer hands. These were hands that built things, broke things, survived things. Why'd you quit being a cop? The question escaped before she could stop it. Mateo's jaw tightened. Why'd you become a lawyer who never loses? That's not an answer. Neither is yours. He turned back to the stove, added wood with practiced efficiency. We've got food for maybe 4 days if we're careful. There's a town 7 miles east, Newport, small enough to be under the radar, big enough to have a grocery store that won't remember faces. We can't risk it. We can't risk starving either. He glanced at the bedroom door, still closed. Maya needs real food, not just canned soup and stale crackers. Sienna set her mug down, crossed to him. Mateo, those men have resources we can't comprehend. Federal databases, facial recognition. If we go public, even for groceries, then I'll go alone. You stay here with Maya. That's suicide. That's parenthood. His voice went hard. Sometimes you risk everything for the kid, even when the math doesn't work. The bedroom door opened. Maya shuffled out, rabbit dragging from one hand, hair a disaster of tangles. She looked at them both with those 2 old eyes. Are you fighting about me? Her voice small, factual. Adults always fight about kids when they think we can't hear. Sienna's heart cracked. Just a little. Just enough to be dangerous. The morning stretched into routine that felt wrong, because routines required safety, and they had none. Mateo showed Maya how to pump water from the well, old cast iron handle that screamed with each stroke. Sienna attempted breakfast, burned oatmeal, salvaged it by adding sugar they didn't have much of. Nobody complained. By noon, the cabin felt smaller. 3 people learning to exist in space designed for solitude. Maya practiced her testimony at the kitchen table, Mateo coaching her through questions prosecutors might ask. Sienna listened, making mental notes, her lawyer brain clicking through strategy even when strategy felt futile. And what did you see that day? Mateo asked, his voice gentle, patient. Men in suits, dumping barrels. Maya's voice steady. She'd practiced this 100 times. The barrels had warning symbols, skull and crossbones. They were pouring liquid into the creek where we catch frogs. What color was the liquid? Yellow, like really bad pee. Maya wrinkled her nose. And it smelled like the dentist's office. Chemical. Sienna leaned forward. Did you recognize any of the men? Maya shook her head. They were too far away. But I took pictures. Mr. Cruz has them. Had them. Mateo's voice went flat. My phone's encrypted, but eventually they'll crack it. FBI has the backups, but those men have FBI connections. It's only a matter of time. The walls closed in. Sienna stood, paced to the window, watched trees that didn't move. We need a backup plan. If Maya can't testify, she'll testify. Mateo's voice like steel. That's not negotiable. Everything's negotiable when survival is on the line. Not this. He stood, crossed to her. I promised her father before ICE took him away that I'd protect his daughter, that I'd make sure her voice mattered. I keep my promises. Sienna turned. They stood close enough she could see the exhaustion in his eyes. the determination that bordered on reckless. Even if keeping that promise kills us both, especially then. Maya's voice cut through the tension. Can I go outside? Just for a little bit? They both turned. The girl looked small at the table, rabbit in her lap. Hope and fear balanced on her face. No, they said in unison. Maya's shoulders dropped. Okay. The cabin suddenly felt like a tomb. Beautiful, safe, suffocating. Sienna grabbed her, Mateo's, jacket from the hook by the door. I need air. Sienna, I'll stay close. I'll be careful. I just need 5 minutes where I don't feel like I'm being buried alive. She didn't wait for permission, stepped outside into gray drizzle and forest that smelled like life continuing despite everything. Behind her, through the thin walls, she heard Mateo teaching Maya a card game, heard laughter, small and bright and desperately normal. The ocean roared its rhythm. The rain kept falling, and Sienna realized she was crying without remembering when it had started. Sienna had survived law school by compartmentalizing. Fear went in one box, doubt in another. Emotion locked away so deep she forgot she'd felt things once. But standing in Oregon rain with no career, no future, no plan beyond surviving until tomorrow, all those boxes burst open. The forest pressed close, cedar and hemlock and Douglas fir creating walls of green that blocked the sky. She walked 50 feet from the cabin, could still see the structure through trees, but felt miles away. Found a fallen log slick with moss and sat. Her hands were shaking. Not cold, not fear, just release. 3 years of winning every case, 3 years of being the gavel, 3 years of proving she could excel in a system designed for people who looked and talked and thought differently than her. All gone, erased in one highway ambush and a news headline that called her a murderer. You okay? She jumped. Mateo stood 10 feet away, hands in his pockets, looking uncomfortable with the question. No. Honesty felt dangerous, but she was too tired to lie. I'm not okay. I'm terrified and angry, and my brain keeps trying to build a legal defense for crimes I didn't commit. And I can't even call my mother to tell her I'm alive because they're probably monitoring her phone. Mateo sat on the log, left space between them. Professional distance. My mom thinks I'm dead, he said, quiet. Has for 3 days. I can't call her either, can't risk it. So she's probably crying in that way where she tries to be tough, but falls apart when she thinks nobody's watching. Sienna looked at him, really looked. How do you do this? Stay calm when everything's falling apart. I don't. He picked up a stick, stripped bark with his thumbnail. Methodical, nervous habit. I just keep moving, keep breathing, keep the kids safe. That's all I can control, so that's where I put my energy. That's not a coping mechanism. That's denial with extra steps. Maybe, but denial keeps me functional. He glanced at her. Your way's not working either, counselor. Breaking down in the forest because you lost control? That's not you. How would you know what's me? We've been enemies for 3 years. Exactly. I've studied you. Every case, every argument, every facial expression when a judge rules against you. He said it matter of fact, clinical. You're brilliant and ruthless and terrified of being wrong. So you work harder than anyone. Prepare better. Never leave room for chance. Sienna's breath caught. That's invasive. That's survival. Knowing your opponent is the only way to beat them. He stood, brushed bark from his jeans. But you're not my opponent anymore. You're my partner. And partners need to trust each other even when trust doesn't make sense. He walked back toward the cabin, left her sitting on the moss-covered log with rain turning her hair to dark ropes and thoughts she couldn't compartmentalize no matter how hard she tried. The ocean kept its rhythm. The forest kept its silence. And somewhere inside the cabin, Maya sang off-key while washing dishes in the hand pump sink. Life continued, even when it shouldn't. The gunshot came at 2 p.m., single crack that echoed through the trees like God clearing his throat. Sienna dropped the book she'd been pretending to read. Mateo was already moving, grabbed Maya, shoved her into the space under the kitchen sink where he'd created a hiding spot using old quilts and camping gear. "Stay, don't make noise, don't come out until I tell you." His voice calm, practiced. He'd prepared for this. Another gunshot, closer. Not aimed at the cabin, someone shooting at something in the forest. Sienna's heart tried to punch through her rib cage. What do we do? We wait. Mateo moved to the window, angled himself to see without being seen. Could be hunters, could be them. How do we know? We don't. 5 minutes stretched into eternity. No more shots. Just silence broken by ocean rhythm and Maya's quiet breathing from inside the cabinet. Then voices. 2 men. Close enough their words carry through walls. Told you this was a waste of time. Nobody's out here. GPS pinged this location 3 days ago. Cruz's truck. 3 days. They're long gone, man. Probably in Canada by now. Footsteps, circling the cabin. Sienna barely breathed. Mateo's hand found the knife on his belt. Not much of a weapon against guns, but better than nothing. A face appeared in the window. Young, clean-shaven, tactical vest over civilian clothes. Not FBI, not police. Private security, mercenary. The man peered through dirty glass. His eyes swept the cabin interior. Empty, dusty, abandoned. Sienna pressed herself against the wall beside the stove, praying shadows hid her well enough. The man moved on. Nothing. Let's check the next location. This is bullshit. 500 square miles of forest, 2 fugitives, and management expects us to search on foot? They pay us to search, so we search. Footsteps faded. An engine started somewhere through the trees. ATV or dirt bike, something designed for off-road pursuit. The sound grew distant. Disappeared. Silence crashed back in. Mateo waited 5 full minutes before speaking. "Maya, you can come out." The girl emerged, rabbit clutched tight. She wasn't crying, wasn't even shaking, just looked at them both with those eyes that had seen too much. "That was close," she said. Factual, calm, the way you comment on weather. Sienna sank onto the couch. Her legs wouldn't hold her anymore. "How many teams do you think they have?" "Enough." Mateo checked the window again, scanned the tree line. "We were lucky. They're searching grid patterns. Eventually they'll be thorough enough to find us." "How long do we have?" "Days, maybe less." He looked at Maya. "We need to leave, tonight, under cover of darkness." "And go where?" Sienna's voice cracked. "Every road has checkpoints. Every town has cameras. We're trapped." "Then we don't use roads. Don't use towns." Mateo pulled out his paper maps, spread them on the floor. "There's a route through the coastal range. Logging trails. Old-growth forest. We hike, stay off-grid, make it to the Canadian border. That's 60 miles of wilderness with a 10-year-old child. That's survival." His finger traced a path. 3 days hiking, maybe 4. We reach Canada, claim asylum, tell our story to media outlets they can't control. Sienna stared at the map, at the blue lines marking rivers they'd have to cross, elevation markers showing mountains they'd have to climb. "That's insane." "That's life now." Mateo's eyes locked on hers. "You have a better plan?" She didn't. The silence said everything. Maya spoke up, small voice with steel underneath. "I can hike. My dad took me camping before. I know how to walk quiet, how to follow trails." The cabin felt smaller than ever, the walls paper thin. Outside, somewhere in those trees, men with guns and radios were searching. Grid patterns, methodical, professional, just like Sienna used to be, before her life dissolved into survival and impossible choices. Sienna's mind worked through scenarios while pretending to help prep supplies. Mateo had emergency packs hidden under the cabin, military grade, waterproof, stocked with first aid and fire starters, and protein bars that tasted like cardboard. He'd been planning this since before the FBI ever knocked on her office door. The realization should have scared her. Instead, it felt reassuring. Someone had thought ahead. Someone had prepared for worst-case scenarios while she was busy winning cases and believing systems worked. Evening fell. They ate dinner in silence, canned stew heated on the wood stove, crackers that had gone soft from humidity. Maya picked at her food. Sienna forced down bites that tasted like ash. "We leave at midnight," Mateo said. "Moon's hidden. Cloud cover's good. We hike 4 hours, make camp before dawn." "And if they have thermal imaging?" Sienna asked. "Then we're dead either way." He said it without inflection, just fact. "But I'm betting they don't. Thermal costs money, resources. They're hunting us on corporate budget, not military ops. That's a hell of a gamble. It's the only gamble we have." Maya stood, carried her bowl to the sink, washed it with water she pumped herself, dried it carefully, hung the towel on the rack with precision that said routine mattered even when nothing else did. "I'm going to bed early," she announced, "so I'm not tired when we walk." Smart kid, practical. Mateo had taught her well. After Maya disappeared into the bedroom, Sienna helped clean up. They worked in silence. She washed, he dried. A domestic routine that felt surreal given they were planning to flee through wilderness pursued by killers. "You didn't have to do this," Sienna said. Quiet. "Protect her. Protect me. You could have disappeared alone. Would have been safer." Mateo's hands stilled on the dish towel. "I made a promise." "Promises don't matter when you're dead. They're the only thing that matters when you're dead." He turned, leaned against the counter. "My partner, back when I was undercover, he died because I was 3 minutes late to the meet. 3 minutes. I'd stopped for coffee, thought we had time. We didn't." His voice stayed level, controlled, but his hands gripped the towel tight enough to strangle it. "He had a daughter, 5 years old. I promised him if anything happened, I'd look after her. Make sure she grew up knowing her dad was a hero." Mateo's jaw worked. "I kept that promise, sent money every month, showed up to her school events, taught her to throw a punch when boys wouldn't leave her alone. Did it for 7 years until she graduated and told me she was okay now, that I'd done enough." Sienna waited, didn't interrupt. This was confession, not conversation. "Maya's not my daughter, but she's somebody's daughter. And her father trusted me to keep her safe when ICE tore their family apart. So yeah, I could have run, could have disappeared, could have saved myself." He met her eyes. "But I wouldn't be able to look at myself in a mirror. And living like that, that's not survival. That's just slowly dying with a pulse." The cabin went quiet except for wood crackling in the stove, an ocean rhythm that never stopped. Sienna dried her hands. "I've never made a promise I wasn't sure I could keep. It seemed like setting myself up for failure." "That's the difference between us, counselor." Mateo hung the towel to dry. "You calculate odds before committing. I commit first, figure out the odds later." That's reckless. That's having faith in something bigger than mathematics. Outside, the forest grew dark. The moon rose behind clouds, and in a few hours they'd walk into that darkness with nothing but backpacks and hope and a 10-year-old girl who'd already survived more than most adults. The wood stove burned low. The shadows grew long, and for the first time in her professional life, Sienna understood why some people chose faith over facts. Because facts said they were going to die. Faith said maybe they wouldn't. And maybe, for tonight, maybe was enough. The news alert lit up Mateo's phone at 11:30 p.m., 30 minutes before they were supposed to leave. Sienna saw his face change, saw the color drain, saw his jaw clench in that way that meant someone had died or was about to. "What?" Her voice barely whispered. Maya was asleep in the bedroom, had been for hours. They couldn't wake her, Couldn't let her see whatever horror the screen showed. Mateo turned the phone. The headline glowed in lamplight. National manhunt intensifies. $500,000 reward for information leading to capture of fugitive attorneys. Below it, updated photos. Better ones. Her firm headshot. His police academy graduation picture from a decade ago. Maya's school photo with "endangered child" stamped across it in red. The article continued. Federal Task Force, FBI, U.S. Marshals, state police coordinating efforts. Roadblocks on every highway, airports on alert. Public urged to call hotline with any sightings. And at the bottom, a quote from Special Agent Reeves. We believe Miss Vance and Mr. Cruz are operating under delusion. They may think they're protecting the child, but they're putting her in grave danger. Anyone harboring these fugitives will face federal charges. Sienna's hands started shaking. They're using Maya, making us look like kidnappers. Because kidnappers are easier to hunt than whistleblowers. Mateo powered off the phone, removed the battery. Doesn't matter, changes nothing. We still leave, still head north. With a $500,000 bounty on our heads? Every hunter, every drifter, every person desperate for money will be looking. We won't make it 5 miles. Then we make it 4 miles and figure out mile 5 when we get there. He checked his watch. 11:40. We move in 20 minutes. Sienna grabbed his arm. Mateo, this is suicide. We need to find another way. Contact a journalist maybe. Tell our story. Let public pressure. Public thinks we're killers. Journalists need proof, and we have none. The evidence burned in that convoy. The agents who could verify our story are dead. All we have is Maya's testimony, and she can't give it if we're captured or dead. He was right. She hated that he was right. Hated that mathematics and logic and careful planning had no answer for a system that had turned against them completely. We should at least wait, she tried. See if... The sound of vehicles cut through the night. Multiple engines. Close. Coming fast. Mateo moved. Killed the lamp. Darkness slammed down. He grabbed the go bags from under the floor. Wake Maya, now. Back door, move. Sienna ran to the bedroom, shook the girl awake, pressed a hand over her mouth before she could speak. We have to go, right now. Don't talk, don't make noise. Follow Mr. Cruz. Maya nodded. Sleep disappeared from her eyes. She grabbed her rabbit, followed. Through the front window, headlights cut through trees. 3 vehicles, maybe 4. Spotlights sweeping the forest. Professional search team. They'd found the cabin. Mateo led them through the back door into forest so dark Sienna couldn't see her own hands. Behind them, voices shouted. Beams cut through cabin windows. Someone kicked in the front door. Federal agents! Come out with your hands visible! They ran, blind, trusting Mateo to know the path. Branches tore at faces, snagged clothing. Maya's hand in Sienna's, small and tight and trembling. Footsteps crashed through the cabin. Clear! They're not here! Check the perimeter. They can't have gone far. Spotlights swept the trees. Dogs barked, bloodhounds or German shepherds, trained to track and attack. Sienna's lungs burned. Her legs screamed. Maya stumbled. Sienna caught her, kept moving. Mateo stopped, turned, whispered so quiet Sienna barely heard. Creeks ahead. We cross. Water kills the scent trail. They crashed down an embankment into icy water that stole breath in feeling. Maya gasped. Sienna pulled her close. They waded downstream, current tugging at legs, rocks slick underfoot. Behind them, dogs bayed, flashlights swept. This way! Movement in the trees! But they were in the creek, moving with water, leaving no trail. Mateo pulled them out 1/2 mile downstream, up another embankment, into forest so thick the spotlights couldn't penetrate. They collapsed, panting, soaked, freezing, but alive, for now. The safe place wasn't safe. It was a fallen cedar with roots torn from earth, creating a cave of wood in dirt and ancient rot. Mateo led them inside. The space smelled like decay and earthworms, and time measured in centuries. He unrolled emergency blankets, thin mylar that crinkled with every movement, wrapped Maya in two, then Sienna. The girl's teeth chattered, her lips had gone blue. Hypothermia sets in fast. Mateo stripped off his soaked jacket, pulled dry clothes from the waterproof pack. Change. Everything, even if you're embarrassed. Wet clothes will kill you faster than bullets. Sienna didn't argue, turned away, changed with shaking hands. The dry shirt felt like luxury, the pants too big, belt cinched tight. She looked like a kid playing dress-up. Maya changed too. Mateo gave her his spare hoodie. It swallowed her whole. She looked like a ghost wearing fabric. "How long until they stop searching?" Sienna whispered. "Dawn, maybe." Mateo checked his watch. Nearly 1 a.m. "We wait until search teams report back. Then we move during their shift change. 4 or 5 a.m. That's when vigilance drops. That's 5 hours. That's survival." He pulled out protein bars, handed them around. "Eat. Keep your core temperature up." They ate in silence. The bars tasted like cardboard and false hope. Outside, spotlights swept the forest. Dogs bayed in the distance. Voices shouted coordinates and grid references. Professional, organized, thorough. Maya finished her bar, curled against Sienna. "Are we going to die?" The question hung in the air. Sienna waited for Mateo to answer with false promises and optimism. He didn't. "Maybe," he said, honest. "But we're going to fight like hell not to. That count for something?" "My dad said fighting only matters if you win." "Your dad was wrong. Fighting matters because it means you didn't quit, didn't surrender, didn't make it easy for the bastards." Mateo's voice went soft, gentle. "You're the bravest kid I've ever met, Maya. You saw bad things, and instead of staying quiet, you took pictures. You told the truth. That took guts. So no matter what happens, you already won where it counts." Maya was quiet. Then, "Thank you for not lying. Thank you for not giving up." Sienna held the girl closer, felt her small heartbeat against her ribs, felt the fragility of life and the impossibility of keeping promises in a world that had stopped making sense. But Mateo was right. Fighting mattered, even if they lost. Maybe especially if they lost. Because someone had to say no. Someone had to refuse to stay quiet, even if it killed them. Outside, the forest went quiet. The search teams moved on. The dogs stopped baying. And in the temporary silence, 3 fugitives huddled in a fallen tree, waiting for dawn or death, whichever came first. The ocean's rhythm carried even here. Push, pull, push, pull. Time passing, life continuing, whether they were alive to see it or not. "We can't keep running." Sienna's voice cut through the pre-dawn darkness at 4:47 a.m. They'd been silent for 3 hours, waiting, and the words burst out like pressure escaping a valve. Mateo checked the forest through gaps in the root system. "We don't have a choice." "There's always a choice. We surrender, tell our story, take our chances with the legal system." "The legal system is hunting us, counselor. Or did you miss the part where federal agents broke into our safe house?" "Not all of them are compromised. Agent Reeves is either corrupt or powerless. Either way, he can't help us." Mateo's voice stayed level, controlled, but his hands gripped the rifle he'd retrieved from a cache buried near the tree. She hadn't asked where he'd gotten it, hadn't wanted to know. "We surface, we're dead within 24 hours. Convenient suicide in custody. Overdose, something that closes the case." "You don't know that." "I know how the game works. I played it for 5 years undercover. Good people die when they're inconvenient. Bad people walk when they're useful." He checked his watch. "Search shift changes in 13 minutes. We move then." "To where? How long can we hide? Days? Weeks?" They have resources we can't match. Eventually, eventually doesn't matter. Today matters. Tomorrow matters. We stack enough todays and maybes, and eventually we get Maya to someone who'll listen. That's not a plan. That's optimistic suicide. Then what's your plan? Mateo turned, eyes hard in the darkness. Break it down for me, lawyer. Show me the brilliant strategy that keeps us all alive and gets Maya in front of a grand jury that isn't compromised. Sienna opened her mouth, closed it, had no answer. Mathematics and evidence and preparation meant nothing when the system itself was broken. Maya stirred, still sleeping against Sienna's side. Her rabbit had fallen. Sienna picked it up, tucked it back under the girl's arm. I don't have a plan, she admitted, voice small. I've never not had a plan before. Welcome to my world, Mateo's voice softened. Most days I'm just making it up as I go, trying to keep one step ahead of chaos. How do you not panic? Who says I don't? He showed her his hands, slight tremor. I'm terrified, every second, but panic kills faster than bullets, so I breathe. I focus on the next 5 minutes, the next decision. I don't think about the whole mountain, just the next step. A branch snapped outside. They froze. Mateo raised the rifle. Sienna barely breathed. Footsteps, slow, heavy, something big moving through underbrush. Then a deer appeared through the gaps, doe with 2 fawns, moving quiet as smoke, unaware of the humans hiding in the fallen tree. The deer passed, disappeared into forest. Crisis that wasn't. Mateo lowered the rifle. 5 minutes, then we move. Sienna nodded, woke Maya gently, whispered, Time to go, sweetheart. Stay quiet, stay close. The girl nodded, clutched her rabbit, stood on legs that should have been too tired but somehow kept working. They emerged from the tree into pre-dawn gray. The forest looked different, washed clean by rain, new day beginning whether they deserved it or not. Mateo led them north. No trail, just compass in memory and stubborn refusal to quit. Behind them, somewhere in the trees, the hunters would wake, reorganize, resume the search. But for now, for these 5 minutes, they were free. 5 minutes stacked on 5 minutes. Hours built from minutes. Days built from hours. Maybe, if they were lucky, enough days to matter. Sienna had never been camping, not once. Summer associates at her firm flew to Aspen for corporate retreats, stayed in 5-star lodges, called it roughing it when the espresso machine broke. This was different. This was survival stripped to basics. Walk, hide, eat, sleep, repeat. By noon, her legs felt like concrete. Blisters formed on heels and toes, despite the boots Mateo had given her from his emergency supplies. Maya walked ahead, tireless, following Mateo through forests that all looked identical to Sienna, but he navigated like he'd memorized every tree. Maybe he had. They stopped for water at a stream. Mateo made them wait while he checked for contamination, used chemical tablets, made them drink even though it tasted like pool water. Giardia kills slower than bullets, he said, but it still kills. Sienna drank, watched Maya splash her face, giggle quietly at how cold it was. The girl had adapted, found joy in small things, resilience that made Sienna feel weak by comparison. How much farther? Sienna asked. 20 miles to the next cache point, another 30 after that to the border. Mateo studied his map, compared it to terrain. 3 days if we make good time. And if we don't, then 4 days. He didn't mention the other possibility, the one where they didn't make it at all. They walked. Afternoon bled into evening. Sienna's world narrowed to putting one foot in front of the other. Her lawyer brain shut down, replaced by something more primitive, basic, animal consciousness that only cared about not stopping. When Mateo finally called halt, darkness had swallowed the forest. They were in a ravine, hidden by ferns and fallen logs, invisible from above. No fire, Mateo said. Thermal imaging might not catch us, but smoke definitely will. They ate cold food, changed wet socks. Maya fell asleep the moment she lay down, rabbit clutched tight. Sienna sat with her back against a tree. Every muscle screamed. She'd worked 100-hour weeks before, thought she knew exhaustion. This was different. This was exhaustion plus terror, plus the constant awareness that death stalked them through the trees. "You did good today," Mateo said. Quiet. He sat nearby, rifle across his knees, keeping watch. "I walked. That's not an accomplishment. You kept going, didn't complain, didn't slow us down. That's more than most people could do." He glanced at her. "You're tougher than you look, counselor." "I'm not tough. I'm just too stubborn to quit." "That's the same thing." Sienna closed her eyes, let darkness press close. "In law school, I had a professor who said the law protects those who follow its rules. Play by the system protects you. And now? Now I know he was wrong. The system protects those with power. Everyone else just survives or doesn't." Mateo was quiet then. "That's the most honest thing you've ever said to me. I'm too tired to lie." "Good. Lies are exhausting." He stood, checked their perimeter. "Get some sleep. I'll take first watch." "When do you sleep?" "When we're safe." "We're never safe." "Then I guess I'm not sleeping." He said it like a joke. Wasn't. Sienna lay down on hard ground, covered by a thin emergency blanket, closed her eyes, listened to forest sounds, wind through branches, small animals moving, Mateo's quiet breathing as he watched for threats that might or might not come. She shouldn't be able to sleep, should be too wired, too scared, too aware of danger. But exhaustion was stronger than fear. Her body shut down. Consciousness fled. And she dreamed of courtrooms that turned into forests, judges that turned into hunters, and a 10-year-old girl who held the only truth that mattered. The helicopter woke them at 2 a.m., rotors thumping overhead, searchlight cutting through trees like God's angry eye. Mateo grabbed Maya. "Don't move. Don't breathe. Thermal imaging looks for motion." They froze. The spotlight swept 20 feet away. Closer. 10 feet. The noise was deafening. Sienna pressed her face into dead leaves, prayed they looked like logs or rocks or anything but people. The light moved on. The helicopter banked away, disappeared into the night. "They're getting desperate," Mateo whispered. "Bringing in air support means ground teams aren't finding us fast enough." "That's good, right?" Sienna's voice shook. "That's bad. Desperate people take risks, use more resources, make the hunt personal." He checked his compass. "We need to move faster. They'll have the area saturated by dawn." They walked through darkness. Mateo used a red-lensed flashlight that barely illuminated the ground. Maya held Sienna's hand. They moved like ghosts, silent, careful, terrified. At 4 a.m., they heard voices. Ahead, multiple people, talking, laughing. Mateo signaled stop, led them wide, circling the sound. Through trees, Sienna saw tents, campfire, 4 men drinking beer, rifles propped against logs. "Hunters?" she mouthed. Mateo shook his head, pointed. One man wore a tactical vest. Another had a radio clipped to his belt. These weren't hunters. These were the hunters. Private security, mercenaries, camping in the woods, waiting for targets to walk into their net. They backed away, slow, silent, took a route that added miles but kept them hidden. By dawn, they'd covered maybe 8 miles. Should have been 15. They were falling behind. "We're not going to make it," Sienna said, stating fact, not opinion. Not with that attitude. Mateo found a hiding spot, dense undergrowth beside a creek. "We rest here, 2 hours, then push hard. We need food, real food, the protein bars. Will last another day. After that, we forage." He saw her expression. "I can identify edible plants, catch fish if we have to. We won't starve. But we might get shot." "Yeah, probably." He said it without drama, just reality. Still better odds than surrendering. Maya curled up between them, fell asleep instantly. Kid had learned to sleep anywhere, anytime. Survival skills Sienna envied. I used to think I was smart, Sienna said, quiet. Top of my class, youngest senior associate, perfect track record. Now I'm hiding in a creek bed eating protein bars and running from helicopters. And you're alive. Maya's alive. That's smarter than any courtroom victory. That's not smart, that's just not dead yet. Sometimes that's the same thing. Mateo closed his eyes. Wake me in an hour, I'll take second watch. You need more than an hour. I need what I can get. Wake me in an hour. Sienna watched him fall asleep, watched his breathing even out, jaw relaxed slightly. Even sleeping, he looked ready to fight. She understood that now. Understood why he'd quit being a cop, why he'd become a public defender, why he fought cases he knew he'd lose. Because sometimes losing was just not dying yet. And not dying meant you could fight tomorrow. Small victories, minutes stacked into hours, hours into days, maybe enough days to matter. She hoped. The border was a line on a map, nothing physical, no wall, just international territory that meant asylum and safety and the chance to tell their story. 15 miles away, might as well have been 15,000. Day 3. They'd run out of protein bars. Mateo caught fish from a stream using line and hooks from his pack, cooked them over a tiny fire he built in a hole, covered with stones to disperse smoke. The fish tasted like miracle. Maya ate every bite, licked her fingers. My dad used to take me fishing, she said, quiet. Before. Before ice? Mateo asked, gentle. Before everything. Maya stared at the dead fire. He said America was supposed to be better, safer, a place where people like us could have real lives. It is better, Mateo said. Sometimes, when people remember what it's supposed to stand for. But they forgot. Some of them, not all. He looked at Sienna. Some people still fight, still believe systems can work if enough people refuse to let them break. Sienna felt those words land, felt them settle somewhere in her chest where idealism used to live before law school beat it out of her. We should move, she said, because emotion was dangerous, because feeling things made you vulnerable. They walked. Afternoon sun broke through clouds, first sunshine in 4 days. It felt like blessing, like maybe the universe wasn't completely hostile. Then they saw the roadblock, Highway 20, the only paved road between them and Canada. And it was locked down. Police cars, federal vehicles, agents checking every car, every truck, every vehicle that tried to pass. They watched from the tree line, half a mile away but visible through Mateo's binoculars. We can't cross here, Sienna said. We can't go around. Terrain's too rough. We'd add 3 days. Maya can't make it. Then what? Mateo studied the roadblock, counted vehicles, measured distances. We cross at night. Off-road. There's a culvert under the highway about half a mile east. Drainage tunnel. Should be big enough. Should be? I've never actually crawled through it, but the maps show it's there. And if it's collapsed, flooded, filled with razor wire, then we figure something else out. He lowered the binoculars. But we try this first, tonight, when their alertness is lowest. Maya touched his arm. Mr. Cruz, I'm scared. He knelt, looked her in the eyes. Me too, kid. But we're going to do it anyway. You know why? Because we don't have a choice? Because we have each other. He pulled Sienna into the conversation. 3 people watching out for each other. 3 people refusing to quit. That's not nothing. It's not enough either, Sienna said. Maybe not, but it's what we have. Mateo stood. So we use it. We cross that highway, we make it to Canada, and we tell the world what happened. And if we die trying, then we die fighting, which is better than dying quiet. They waited for darkness, watched the roadblock, counted patrol patterns, timed shift changes. Professional surveillance work that Mateo had learned as a cop and Sienna had learned as a litigator. Strange how different skills converged when survival was the only goal. At 11 p.m. they moved, crawled through brush, covered 3/4 of a mile in 40 minutes, reached the culvert. It was there. Concrete tube 4 feet in diameter, water trickling through. Not flooded, not collapsed, just dark, and unknown, and terrifying. "I'll go first," Mateo said. "If it's clear, I'll signal. Maya goes second. Sienna, you bring up rear. Anything goes wrong, you run. Don't wait for us." "I'm not leaving. If it goes wrong, one of us needs to survive. Tell the story. That's you." His eyes locked on hers. "Promise me." Sienna wanted to argue. Couldn't. He was right. If this failed, someone needed to escape. Document what happened. Tell the truth. "I promise," she lied. He knew she was lying. Smiled anyway. Good enough. He crawled into the tunnel, disappeared into darkness. Maya followed, small form swallowed by shadow. Sienna went last. The tunnel smelled like rust and dead leaves. Water soaked through her clothes. She couldn't see, could only crawl blind, following sounds ahead. Behind her, a voice. "Movement at the culvert." Flashlights, running footsteps, dogs barking. They'd been seen. "Go! Don't stop!" Mateo's voice echoed through the tunnel. Sienna crawled faster, knees scraping concrete, hands in icy water. Behind her, flashlights pierced the darkness, shapes moving, men shouting, "Federal agents, stop where you are!" She didn't stop, couldn't. Maya's small form ahead, moving fast. Mateo beyond, already emerging from the tunnel's far end. Gunfire cracked. Bullets hit concrete, ricocheted, the sound deafening in enclosed space. Sienna's ears rang. She kept moving. 30 feet, 20, 10. Hands grabbed her ankles, pulled. "Got one!" Sienna kicked, connected with face, heard a curse, kept crawling. Emerged into night air on the north side of Highway 20. Canada side, almost. Mateo grabbed her arm, pulled her up. Maya already running toward tree line. Behind them, agents emerged from the tunnel. 3, 4, weapons drawn. "On the ground, hands where we can see them." Mateo raised his rifle. Not to shoot, to threaten. "Walk away. We're almost in Canada." "You have no jurisdiction there." "We have jurisdiction here. Last chance, surrender or we will use lethal force." "Do it then." Mateo's voice steady. "Shoot 2 unarmed lawyers and a 10-year-old girl. Let's see how that plays on the news cycle." The agents hesitated. Radios crackled. Someone requesting orders. Sienna grabbed Maya, started running. North, toward the tree line, toward Canada. "Stop!" Agent's voice. "Stop or we shoot." They didn't stop. A shot cracked. Dirt exploded beside Sienna's feet. Warning shot. They kept running. Another shot. This one closer. Not warning. Mateo turned, fired back. Not at the agents, over their heads, suppressing fire, making them take cover. "Get to the trees," he shouted. "I'm right behind you." Sienna ran, pulled Maya. 20 yards. 10. The tree line so close. Safety. Canada. Freedom. A shot. Mateo grunted, stumbled. Sienna turned, saw him fall. "No!" She started back. "Go!" Mateo's voice, angry, desperate. "Get Maya to safety. Tell the story." "I'm not leaving." "You promised." Blood stained his shirt, his leg. He couldn't stand. "Keep your promise, counselor. For once in your life, break the rules that matter." Agents advancing. 5 of them now, weapons ready. Maya pulled Sienna's hand. "We have to go." He said go. Sienna looked at Mateo, at the man who'd saved her life multiple times, who'd fought for a girl he barely knew, who'd kept his promises even when it cost him everything. "I'll come back," she said. "I know," he smiled, blood on his teeth. "Now go." She ran, pulled Maya into the trees, north, toward Canada, toward safety that felt like betrayal. Behind her, voices. "Suspect down! We need medical!" And Mateo's voice, faint but defiant. "Worth it." The trees swallowed them. Darkness, safety, Canada. They'd made it, but the cost was too high. The Canadian Border Patrol found them at 3 a.m. Two officers in a patrol truck responding to reports of gunfire. Sienna stood in the middle of a logging road, hands raised, Maya behind her. They were soaked, exhausted. Sienna's shirt was covered in blood, Mateo's blood from when she tried to help him before agents forced her away. "We need asylum," Sienna said, voice hoarse. "We're American citizens. We're being hunted, please." The officers approached carefully, hands on weapons, professional, wary. "Names?" "Sienna Vance. This is Maya Reyes. There's another man, Mateo Cruz. He was shot by federal agents. He's still on the U.S. side. He needs medical attention." Recognition flashed across the senior officer's face. He'd seen the news, knew who they were: fugitives, wanted criminals, child abductors, or refugees, depending on perspective. "You're the ones from the manhunt," he said. "Not question, statement. We're the ones who witnessed corporate murder and refused to die quietly." Sienna's hands shook. She couldn't stop them. "Please, the girl is a witness. She's in danger. We need protection." The officers exchanged glances. Radio chatter in French. Discussion. Finally, "You'll need to come to the station. Make formal asylum requests. There will be interviews, investigations." "And the man, Mateo Cruz? If he's on U.S. soil, we can't help him. Sovereignty issues." The officer's voice softened. "I'm sorry." Sienna's knees buckled. The officer caught her, guided her to the truck. Maya climbed in beside her. They drove toward a small border station, lights cutting through Canadian forest. They'd made it. They were safe. They could tell their story. But Mateo was bleeding on American soil, surrounded by agents who thought he was a criminal. And Sienna had left him there, kept her promise, broke her heart. The truck drove north, away from the border, away from the man who'd saved them. Maya's small hand found Sienna's, squeezed. "He told us to go," Maya whispered. "It's not your fault." But it felt like fault, felt like betrayal, felt like every compromise she'd ever made to succeed in a system that rewarded self-interest over loyalty. The border station appeared, lights, safety, the beginning of a legal process that would either vindicate them or destroy them. Either way, Mateo wasn't there to see it, and that felt like the worst failure of all. The interview room smelled like institutional coffee and bureaucratic patience. Sienna sat across from three people: Canadian Border Services officer, RCMP detective, and a representative from Immigration and Refugee Board. Maya was in another room. Separate interview, standard protocol. They'd been here 6 hours, answering questions, providing testimony, watching skepticism slowly transform into belief as evidence corroborated their story. The news had already broken. American attorneys claim asylum in Canada, allege corporate conspiracy. Witness child describes environmental crimes. Federal government denies all accusations. The media circus had begun. "Ms. Vance," the IRB representative said, woman in her 50s, sharp eyes, careful words. "Your testimony is consistent with the child's. Your story checks out on initial investigation. We're granting you temporary protected status while asylum claims are processed." Relief flooded through Sienna. She nearly broke. Let it together. What about Mateo Cruz? The RCMP detective, a man named Rousseau, pulled up a tablet. "He's alive, leg wound, non-fatal. He's in custody at a Seattle hospital under federal guard, charged with multiple offenses, fleeing federal agents, weapons possession, child endangerment. Those are false charges. That's for the courts to decide. Rousseau's voice stayed neutral. But there's pressure, public interest, media attention. His case may become a political football. Can we help him? You can provide testimony, documents, evidence. Whether it's enough, he shrugged. American justice system is complicated. Sienna stood, paced to the window, looked out at Canadian forest that looked identical to the one they'd fled through. He saved our lives, multiple times, risked everything to protect a child he barely knew. And now he's in a hospital bed facing decades in prison. That's heroism, the IRB rep said. Quiet. It's also the definition of sacrifice. He shouldn't have had to sacrifice. The system should have protected him. Protected all of us. Should have. Didn't. Rousseau closed his tablet. But you're alive. The child is safe. Your story is being heard. That counts for something. Did it? Sienna wasn't sure. Victory felt hollow when the person who'd made it possible was paying the price. A knock on the door, an officer entered, whispered to Rousseau. His eyebrows rose. There's been a development, he said. The FBI agent from your case, Reeves, he's requesting a meeting, says he has evidence, wants to provide testimony to Canadian authorities about corruption in the investigation. Sienna's heart jumped. He's defecting? He's covering his ass probably, but if his testimony backs your story, Rousseau stood. This might change everything. Hours later, after more interviews and paperwork and bureaucratic machinery grinding toward justice, Sienna sat in a hotel room. First bed in days. First shower. First moment of genuine safety. Maya slept in the next room. Finally peaceful. Finally safe. Sienna called her mother. Had a conversation full of tears and recriminations and relief. Called her law firm. Resigned effective immediately. Called Mateo's public defender. Tell him I'm coming back, she said. Tell him I'm going to testify. Tell him I'm going to burn down every corrupt system that put us through this. That's a tall order, the lawyer said. I've won 43 consecutive cases. I don't lose. Sienna's voice hardened. And I'm not starting now. She hung up, stood at the window, watched Canadian night that looked so much like American night. The border was imaginary. Justice should be too. Universal. Blind. Fair. It wasn't. But she was going to fight until it was. For Mateo. For Maya. For every person crushed by systems that forgot why they existed. Small victories. Minutes into hours. Hours into days. She'd survived. Now came the harder part. Living with what survival had cost. The Seattle federal courthouse looked different from the defendant's side of the glass. Sienna sat in the witness waiting room, hands folded in her lap, wearing a borrowed suit that fit wrong in all the places that mattered. 3 weeks since they'd crossed the border. 3 weeks of depositions and interviews and legal maneuvering that made her old corporate cases look simple. Maya was testifying right now, behind closed doors. Grand jury proceedings, secret, protected, the way it should have been from the beginning. Agent Reeves had flipped, brought evidence, names, bank accounts, a conspiracy that reached higher than anyone had imagined. Federal agents on pharmaceutical payroll, judges receiving consulting fees, a network designed to protect corporate crime while prosecuting anyone who threatened profit margins. The media called it the biggest corruption scandal in a decade. Politicians called for investigations. The public called for blood. Sienna just wanted Mateo out of the hospital bed where he'd spent 3 weeks recovering from surgery, shackled to the frame like a criminal. The door opened. Maya emerged, flanked by 2 U.S. Marshals. Different ones. Vetted. Clean. The girl looked exhausted but steady. She told the truth. Done the impossible thing. Ms. Vance? A marshal gestured. They're ready for you. Sienna stood, smoothed her borrowed jacket, walked into the grand jury room like she'd walked into 100 courtrooms before, spine straight, chin up, ready to destroy anyone who questioned her credibility. 23 jurors watched her enter. Citizens, regular people, the kind who believed in systems working when given truth. She hoped they were right. The prosecutor was young, earnest, probably thrilled to be handling the case that would make his career. Ms. Vance, please state your name and occupation for the record. Sienna Marie Vance. I was senior associate at Morrison & Klein. I am currently unemployed and seeking asylum in Canada. You were one of the lead prosecutors in the original Meridian Pharma case 2 years ago, correct? Correct. Her voice steady. Always steady. We secured convictions against CEO Gregory Halston and 3 senior executives for illegal drug trials that resulted in 16 deaths. And you believe that case was concluded? I did, until men started dying, until a child witness was targeted, until the federal agents assigned to protect us led us into an ambush. Sienna's hands gripped the armrests. Then I realized the case was never over. It had metastasized, grown new heads, become something worse. The prosecutor walked her through the timeline, the safe house attack, the highway ambush, the cabin, the manhunt, every detail documented, verified, corroborated by evidence Reeves had provided. And Mateo Cruz? The prosecutor asked. Describe his role in these events. Sienna met the juror's eyes. He saved my life, Maya's life, multiple times, at great personal cost. He could have disappeared alone, would have been safer, but he refused to abandon a child who needed protection. Her voice cracked, just slightly. He's a hero, and he's currently chained to a hospital bed, facing charges that should never have been filed. The prosecutor nodded. Thank you, Ms. Vance. The jury may have questions. They did. Lots of questions. She answered every one. No evasions, no lawyer tricks. Just truth, plain and brutal and documented. When she finished, 3 hours later, the jury foreman, a woman in her 60s who looked like somebody's grandmother, spoke. Thank you for your courage, Ms. Vance. We'll be recommending indictments. Sienna nodded, stood, walked out of the room with legs that barely held her. In the hallway, Maya waited, rushed over, hugged her tight. You did good, the girl whispered. My dad would be proud. Sienna held her, let the tears come. After 3 weeks of holding everything together, she finally broke. Just for a moment, just enough to remember she was human. Then she pulled herself together, because the fight wasn't over yet. Harborview Medical Center smelled like antiseptic and institutional hope. Sienna walked the corridors with a visitor's badge clipped to her collar, following signs toward the secure ward where federal prisoners recovered under guard. She'd fought for this visit, called in favors from Canadian officials, threatened lawsuits, made noise until someone approved her request for 20 minutes with Mateo Cruz, supervised, recorded, conditional. 20 minutes. After everything. It felt like an insult. The guard outside his room was young, professional. He checked her ID 3 times before unlocking the door. 20 minutes. Keep your distance from the prisoner. No physical contact. He's not a prisoner. He's a witness. Ma'am, that's for the courts to decide. She walked in. The room was standard hospital. White walls, beeping monitors, window with a view of Seattle rain. Mateo lay in the bed, leg elevated, cuffed wrist chained to the frame. He'd lost weight, looked older, but his eyes still had that fire. He smiled when he saw her. Counselor, you look good in freedom. You look terrible in chains. She pulled up a chair, stayed outside touching distance. Rules. How's the leg? Healing, slowly. Doctors say I'll walk with a limp. He shrugged like it didn't matter. Maybe to him it didn't. How's Maya? Safe. Testified today. Grand juries recommending indictments against 14 people, federal agents, corporate executives, even a federal judge. Mateo's smile widened. Good. She's brave as hell. Knew she would be. She asks about you. Every day. Wants to visit, but they won't allow it. Witness protection protocols. Better that way. Kid doesn't need to see me like this. He gestured at the chains with his free hand. Like some kind of animal. Sienna's throat tightened. I'm working on getting the charges dropped. Reeves is testifying on your behalf. Public defenders have organized a defense fund. There's media pressure. Sienna, soft, gentle, using her first name instead of counselor for maybe the first time ever. Stop. Stop what? Stop trying to save me. You did your part, got Maya to safety, told the truth. That's enough. It's not enough. You're facing federal charges because you protected us. That's not justice. That's consequence. He shifted in the bed, winced. I knew the risks, made my choice. Don't regret it. You should. You should regret all of it. You should have saved yourself. And live knowing I let a kid die? No thanks. His eyes locked on hers. Some things matter more than survival, counselor. You taught me that. I didn't teach you anything. You already knew it. Maybe, but you reminded me it was worth fighting for. He glanced at the clock. 15 minutes left. Tell me about Canada. Is it nice? It's cold. The healthcare is better. Maya's enrolled in school. We're living in a temporary housing facility while asylum claims are processed. Sienna leaned forward. But it feels wrong, being safe while you're here. That's guilt. Natural response. Ignore it. Mateo's voice went serious. You need to do something for me. Anything. When this trial happens, and it will, because they can't drop charges without admitting the system failed, you need to let it happen. Don't sacrifice yourself trying to save me. I'm not letting you go to prison for... I might go to prison. Might not. Either way, that's my cross to bear. He said it with finality. Decision made. But Maya needs someone. Her father's gone. I'll be locked up or worse. She needs an adult who gives a damn. Someone smart enough to help her navigate a system that's tried to kill her twice. Sienna's breath caught. You're asking me to... I'm asking you to be her guardian, legal, permanent. If I don't walk out of this trial, if I end up in federal prison for 20 years, she needs someone. His voice cracked, just barely. Please, promise me. Mateo, promise me, Sienna. Using her first name again, making it personal. Because if I know she's safe, if I know someone brilliant and stubborn and too ethical for her own good is watching her back, then whatever happens to me doesn't matter. The guard knocked. 5 minutes. Sienna stood, moved closer. Rules be damned. I promise, but you're not going to prison. I'm going to burn down every corrupt system that put you here. That's my promise. You can't win every case, counselor. I've won 43 consecutive. I don't plan to stop at 43. He laughed, winced. There's the ice queen I fell in love with. The words hung in the air. Fell in love with. Not metaphor, not joke, just truth. Sienna's heart stopped, started, stopped again. Time's up, the guard said, opening the door. She wanted to say something, couldn't, just looked at Mateo, who smiled like he'd given away a secret and didn't regret it. Go save the world, counselor. I'll be here when you're done. She walked out. Let the guard close the door. Stood in the hallway with hospital sounds and fluorescent lights and the echo of 3 words that changed everything. Fell in love with. The man chained to a hospital bed had fallen in love with her, somewhere between arguing in courtrooms and running through forests and choosing to sacrifice himself so she could escape. And she realized, standing in that hallway with rain hitting windows and guards watching federal prisoners, that she'd fallen in love with him too. Somewhere along the way, in the spaces between survival and surrender. Damn. The trial date appeared on the docket like a threat. United States versus Mateo Cruz. 2 months away. Preliminary hearing scheduled. Media circus guaranteed. Sienna returned to Canada, to Maya, to the temporary life they were building from wreckage and hope. But she didn't stop working. Couldn't. Used every connection she'd built in 3 years of corporate law. Called in favors. Leveraged media contacts. Built a defense strategy that would have made her old firm proud. The American Civil Liberties Union took the case. Pro bono. Constitutional violations. Civil rights. The case that would define federal overreach for a generation. Public opinion shifted. The manhunt looked less like justice, more like cover-up. Maya's testimony leaked, not from Sienna, she'd never compromise a witness, but from someone in the grand jury. Media ran with it. Pharmaceutical conspiracy, federal corruption. A 10-year-old girl who'd almost died for telling the truth. Mateo became a symbol. Heroic public defender fighting corruption. Man who'd sacrificed everything for a child. The narrative grew bigger than facts, but for once the narrative helped instead of hurt. 6 weeks before trial, Sienna got a call. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. "Ms. Vance, this is Gerald Morrison, your former senior partner." Sienna's hand tightened on the phone. "I have nothing to say to you." "I have something to say to you. The firm is offering support, legal resources, whatever you need for the Cruz defense." "Why would you do that?" "Because we were wrong. I was wrong. You were right about Meridian, right about the corruption, right about everything." Gerald's voice sounded older, tired. "And because 43 consecutive wins means something, it means you're the kind of lawyer we should have protected instead of abandoned." "I don't want the firm's help. I want justice." "Then let us help you get it. Please, consider it penance." Sienna hung up. But she kept the number. 2 weeks before trial, the prosecution made an offer. Plea deal. Time served. Mateo walks free if he admits to fleeing federal custody and weapons charges. No jail time beyond what he'd already spent in the hospital. The ACLU lawyers brought it to Sienna. "It's a good deal. Better than we could have hoped for. He should take it." He didn't do anything wrong. Taking a plea means admitting guilt. Taking a plea means surviving. Going to trial risks 20 years. Sienna looked at the paperwork. At the deal that would free Mateo but taint him forever. Convicted felon. Admitted criminal. The system's way of winning even when they lost. "Set up a call. Let me talk to him." They did. Prison phone. 15 minutes. Recorded line. Guards listening. "Counselor." Mateo's voice, stronger than in the hospital. He'd been transferred to federal holding, awaiting trial. "I hear we have a deal." "You have a deal. I have objections." "Of course you do." She could hear the smile. "What are the objections?" "You're innocent. Taking a plea contradicts that. Lets them win." "They already won, Sienna. The question is whether I spend the next 20 years fighting or the next 20 years living. Living as a convicted felon. Living free, there's a difference." "Is there? When the conviction follows you forever, restricts your rights, defines who you are?" Silence. Long enough she thought the connection had dropped. Then, "How's Maya?" "Good, thriving. Started school, making friends. She asks about you constantly." "Tell her I'm fine. Tell her I kept my promise." "She knows. She also knows you're in prison, waiting trial for protecting her. That's not fine." "It's fine enough." His voice went soft. "Take the deal, Sienna, please. I need to know you and Maya are building a life without this hanging over you. I need to know I didn't destroy your future by doing the right thing." "You didn't destroy anything. You saved everything that mattered." "Then save me back. Accept the deal. Let me walk free." The call timer showed 2 minutes remaining. "Mateo, please, for once in your brilliant, stubborn, impossibly ethical life, compromise. Take the win. Let it be enough. 60 seconds. Sienna closed her eyes, made the hardest decision of her legal career. Okay, I'll tell them you accept. Thank you. Relief flooded his voice. And Sienna, that thing I said in the hospital, still true, just so you know. 30 seconds. I know, she said. It's true for me too. Good, that's good. He laughed. Bright, happy, free already in his mind. See you on the outside, counselor. The call disconnected. Sienna sat in her Canadian apartment with Maya doing homework at the kitchen table and cried. Not from grief, from relief. From the knowledge that sometimes winning meant accepting less than perfect. Sometimes survival was the victory. The day Mateo was released, Seattle through its worst weather. Rain like bullets, wind that bent trees, sky the color of bruised hope. Sienna was there, at the federal detention center, waiting outside the gates with an umbrella she knew he'd refuse, and a car she'd borrowed from an ACLU volunteer. In 3 years of emotion, she had no idea how to express. Maya couldn't come. Witness protection protocols still in effect until the larger trial concluded. But she'd sent a letter, crayoned drawing, written in careful handwriting. Thank you for keeping your promise. I'm keeping mine too. See you soon. The gates opened. Mateo walked out. Free. No chains, no guards. Just a man in borrowed clothes with a limp and a smile and eyes that found hers immediately. Sienna couldn't move. 3 months since the cabin, since the kiss, since she'd run through forests and left him bleeding and promised to come back. He crossed to her, slow, limping, but steady. You came, he said. I promised. You always keep your promises, even the ones that cost you, especially those. They stood there, rain soaking them both, umbrella forgotten in her hand. I should hug you, Mateo said, but I smell like federal detention and regret. I don't care. She closed the distance, hugged him, hard, real. He was solid, alive, free. His arms wrapped around her, tight, like letting go might make her disappear. I'm sorry, he whispered into her hair, for everything, for dragging you into this, for destroying your career, for... Stop. You didn't destroy anything. You saved everything that mattered. She pulled back, looked at him. And my career was built on a system that needed burning down anyway. You helped me see that. So what now? You going to stay in Canada? Build a new life? Eventually, after the big trial, after we testify against everyone who tried to kill us, she gestured to the car. But first, I'm taking you to breakfast. Real food, not prison food. Then we figure out the rest. I like the sound of that. He limped toward the car. Can I request pancakes? I've had dreams about pancakes for 3 months. You can have whatever you want. This breakfast is on Morrison and Klein's settlement fund. They settled? Wrongful prosecution, civil rights violations. You're now a moderately wealthy man. Congratulations. Mateo laughed, actually laughed. Sound like freedom. Only you could turn a manhunt into a profitable legal settlement. I told you, I don't lose. They drove through Seattle rain toward a diner Mateo knew. Small place, local. The kind where waitresses remembered regulars and refilled coffee without asking. He ordered pancakes. She ordered nothing. Watched him eat like a man who'd forgotten what real food tasted like. Maya's doing good, Sienna said. Really good. School, friends, therapy. She's resilient as hell. She learned from the best. She learned from you. Then she learned stubbornness and poor decision-making, he smiled. Perfect combination. She wants to see you, soon as the trial ends, soon as it's safe. And you? What do you want? Sienna's coffee sat untouched, going cold. I want to go back to the cabin, the one in Oregon, just for a weekend. No running, no hiding, just being there without terror. That can be arranged. I want to watch you teach Maya to fish, to see you both safe and happy, also achievable. And I want, she stopped, took a breath. I want to figure out what this is, between us, without life or death stakes. Just two people seeing if feelings that developed under duress survive in peace. Mateo set down his fork. That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. It's not romantic, it's logical. We need to test variables. Remove survival pressure. See if... Sienna. He reached across the table, took her hand. It's romantic and terrifying, and I want that too. Outside, rain kept falling. Inside, warmth spread from where their hands touched. Small, real, fragile as hope. Finish your pancakes, she said. We have a long drive ahead. Where are we going? Oregon coast. I made a reservation. At the cabin? At a hotel near the cabin. Because the cabin has no electricity or running water, and I've had enough of roughing it. She smiled. But we can visit. Pretend we're fugitives again, just for fun. That's the darkest definition of fun I've ever heard. Welcome to my world. He laughed, squeezed her hand, went back to his pancakes, and for the first time in 3 months, Sienna felt something other than fear or anger or exhaustion. She felt hope, small and fragile and probably temporary, but real. And for now, real was enough. The main trial started 4 months later. United States v. Meridian Pharmaceuticals et al. 14 defendants. Federal courtroom. Media circus that made the original case look small. Sienna testified. Mateo testified. Maya testified from a remote location. Face obscured. Voice disguised. Identity protected. Agent Reeves testified. Brought evidence. Bank records. Encrypted communications. A conspiracy so vast it touched federal agencies, pharmaceutical companies, and enough politicians to make everyone nervous. The trial lasted 6 weeks. Sienna sat through every day, front row, taking notes, watching justice grind slowly forward like a glacier that crushed everything in its path. The defense tried to discredit them, called Sienna a disgraced lawyer protecting her reputation, called Mateo a reckless defender with history of insubordination, called their testimony convenient fiction designed to cover their crimes. The prosecution demolished those arguments with evidence, facts, documentation, the paper trail that didn't lie. On the final day, closing arguments lasted 8 hours. Defense claimed persecution. Prosecution claimed justice. The jury deliberated for 3 days. Sienna waited in a hotel room, paced, couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, just waited for the verdict that would either vindicate everything or prove the system was too broken to fix. Mateo sat on the couch, calm, reading a book, completely at peace. "How are you so calm?" Sienna asked. "Because we already won. We're alive. Maya's safe. The story's been told. Everything else is just details. Details determine whether people go to prison or walk free. Yes, but those aren't details we control. So why waste energy worrying? Because worrying is what I do. It's my superpower." He set down the book, pulled her onto the couch beside him. "Your superpower is winning, even when the odds are impossible, even when the system is rigged. You don't quit. Sometimes quitting is smart, but you don't. That's what makes you brilliant." The phone rang. Unknown number. Sienna's heart stopped. She answered. "Yes? Miss Vance? This is the clerk's office. The jury has reached a verdict. Court convenes in 1 hour." "Thank you." She hung up, looked at Mateo. "This is it. This is it." He stood, offered his hand. "Whatever happens, we're okay. You know that, right?" "I know." She took his hand, let him pull her up. "But I really want to win." "Of course you do. You're Sienna Vance. Losing isn't in your vocabulary." They drove to the courthouse through Seattle traffic. found seats in the gallery packed with media and lawyers and people who believed in accountability. Maya was in Canada, watching via live stream, safe and protected. The jury filed in, faces carefully neutral, professional, the kind of neutral that meant they'd made hard decisions. The judge banged his gavel. Has the jury reached a verdict? The foreman stood, a man in his 40s, teacher, father, citizen. We have, Your Honor. What say you? On the charges of conspiracy to commit murder, we find the defendants guilty. The courtroom exploded. Gasps, shouts, reporters rushing for doors to break the news. Sienna sat frozen, barely breathing. On charges of federal corruption, we find the defendants guilty. On charges of obstruction of justice, guilty, guilty, guilty. 14 counts, 14 guilty verdicts. Justice served cold and documented and impossible to appeal away. Sentencing would come later, decades probably, enough time to ensure those responsible never hurt anyone again. The judge dismissed the jury, thanked them, scheduled sentencing, banged his gavel. Court is adjourned. Sienna stood on shaking legs, Mateo beside her. They'd won. Actually won. Against odds that should have crushed them. 44 consecutive wins, Mateo whispered. You're on a roll, counselor. We won, both of us. Yeah, we did. Outside the courthouse, media swarmed. Questions, cameras. Sienna ignored them all, just kept walking toward the car, toward freedom, toward a life that was finally theirs to build. Her phone buzzed. Text from Maya. We won. Mr. Cruz said we'd win, and we did. Sienna smiled, showed Mateo the screen. Smart kid, he said. Knew all along. Faith over facts? Sometimes they're the same thing. They drove through Seattle, toward the hotel, toward whatever came next, and for the first time in months, the future felt open instead of terrifying. Won. They'd actually won. Small victories, minutes into hours, days into months. Justice delayed, but finally, impossibly, delivered. The cabin looked the same, cedar walls weathered silver, Oregon forest pressing close, ocean roaring its eternal rhythm beyond the trees. Sienna stood in the doorway 6 months after the verdict, after sentencing, after 14 people went to federal prison, after the media moved on to the next scandal and life started resembling normal. Mateo was inside, lighting the wood stove. Maya explored the bedroom, her rabbit in hand, exclaiming over the simple space like it was a palace. This is where you stayed? Maya asked. Where you hid from the bad guys? This is where we survived, Mateo said, where we became family. Family. The word landed soft. True. In the months since the trial, since Maya's asylum was granted, since Sienna officially became her legal guardian, they'd built something new. Something that looked like family, even if the paperwork was complicated. Sienna entered the cabin, touched the wood stove, the couch where she'd slept, the kitchen table where Mateo had taught Maya card games while death stalked outside. It's smaller than I remembered, she said. Fear makes everything bigger. Mateo joined her. But it kept us safe. That's what matters. Maya ran outside. They heard her laughing, exploring, being 11 instead of the old soul who'd testified against criminals and survived manhunts. She's happy, Sienna said. Really happy. She's resilient. Kids are. Mateo leaned against the counter. How about you? Are you happy? I'm content. Working for the ACLU, fighting cases that matter, living in Canada where healthcare doesn't bankrupt families. It's good. But I miss practice, real practice, the courtroom, the fight. So come back. Seattle would love to have you. Defense firms are begging. You could write your ticket. And uproot Maya? She's finally settled, has friends, a life. She'd adapt, kids do. He moved closer. But that's not really why you're hesitant, is it? Sienna met his eyes. No, it's not. So what is it? I'm terrified of this, of us, of building something real when everything I built before collapsed or was a lie. She gestured around the cabin. In here it was simple. Survival, clear stakes. Now it's complicated. We have to figure out if what we felt under pressure survives in peace. And? And I don't know. I'm brilliant in courtrooms, terrible at relationships. I've never kept a relationship longer than 6 months because I work too much, care too much about cases, forget birthdays and anniversaries and all the things normal people remember. Mateo smiled. Good thing I'm not normal people. Mateo, Sienna, I fell in love with you arguing in courtrooms before the manhunt. I fell deeper watching you refuse to quit when most people would have died. The verdict didn't change that. Peace didn't change that. He took her hand. I'm here for the complicated, for the terrifying, for whatever this becomes. What if I destroy it? I'm good at destroying things. Then we rebuild. That's what we do. We survive. We rebuild. We keep going. Maya's voice from outside. Are you two being weird again? Because I want to explore the beach. They laughed. Tension broke. Sienna squeezed his hand. We should take her to the beach, she said. We should. But he didn't let go. And tonight, after she's asleep, we should talk. Really talk. Figure out what this is. Promise? Promise. They walked outside, found Maya already running toward the path to the ocean, followed her. 3 people who'd survived impossible odds, now building impossible futures. The cabin stood behind them, empty again, waiting for the next crisis or the next weekend visit. Witness to survival. Monument to stubborn refusal to die quietly. The ocean roared. The forest whispered. And 3 people who'd become family walked toward the beach where water met land, and everything was possible. That night, after Maya fell asleep in the hotel room, comfortable bed, actual electricity, running water, all the luxuries they'd lacked in the cabin, Sienna and Mateo sat on the balcony overlooking the Pacific. Stars cut through clouds. Rare, clear night, the kind that felt like gift. I lied earlier, Sienna said, when I said I was content. I know. How? Because you click your pen when you're lying. Same tell you have in court. She laughed. Damn, I thought I'd trained that out. You trained it out, but it comes back under stress. Okay, so you know I lied. Want to know the truth? Always. Sienna pulled her knees up, wrapped her arms around them. Defensive position. Old habit. I'm terrified every day that this will fall apart. That Maya will realize I'm a terrible guardian. That you'll realize I'm not worth the trouble. That the system will find some new way to destroy what we built. That's fear, not truth. Fear is truth. It's the most honest thing I feel. Mateo was quiet, let her words settle. Then, want to know what I feel? What? Gratitude. Every morning I wake up without chains, with a kid who trusts me enough to ask homework questions, with a woman brilliant enough to terrify prosecutors and crazy enough to run through forests with me. That's not fear, that's grace I don't deserve. You deserve everything good, Mateo. You saved us. We saved each other. That's the point. He reached for her hand, found it. You want truth? Here's mine. I love you. Past tense, present tense, future tense. I loved you arguing in courtrooms. I love you now building a life from wreckage. I'll love you tomorrow when you're fighting your next case and forgetting to eat lunch. Sienna's breath caught. That's not rational. Love requires compatibility, shared values, common goals. We have all that. We just got there through trauma instead of dating apps. That's not how relationships work. Maybe not. But it's how ours works. He pulled her closer. So stop analyzing. Stop trying to quantify emotion. Just feel it. Sit with it. Let it be messy and complicated and real. I don't do messy. You hiked 60 miles through wilderness being hunted by killers. You did messy. You survived messy. Now you just have to live messy. She leaned against him. Let his shoulder support her weight. Listen to his heartbeat. Steady, real, alive. I love you too, she whispered. It terrifies me, but I do. Good. Terror means you care. Caring means you're human. I hate being human. It's inefficient. He laughed, kissed her forehead. Welcome to the rest of your life, counselor. It's going to be messy and beautiful and worth every terrifying second. They sat there, stars wheeling overhead, ocean keeping rhythm. Two people who'd survived the impossible, now facing the ordinary. Building a life, together, one messy, complicated, beautiful day at a time. 1 year later, Sienna stood in a new courtroom. Canadian court, smaller, less dramatic, but hers. She'd passed the Canadian bar, joined a firm specializing in immigration and refugee law. Cases that mattered. People who needed someone who understood survival because she'd lived it. Today's client was a woman from Honduras, fled gang violence, seeking asylum. The kind of case Sienna would have ignored a few years ago. Now it was personal. She argued, presented evidence, made her case. The judge listened, thoughtful, fair, decided. Asylum granted. The woman wept, hugged Sienna, thanked her in Spanish and broken English in tears. You're safe now, Sienna said, meaning it, believing it. Outside the courtroom, Mateo waited. He'd taken a job with Canadian Legal Aid, public defense. Same work, different country, still fighting for people the system forgot. How'd it go? Won, obviously. Obviously. He kissed her, quick, public, normal couple doing normal things. Maya was at school, thriving, top of her class, still drawing pictures of rabbits, still brave beyond measure. They walked through Vancouver streets toward their apartment, small, affordable, full of life they'd built from ashes. Got a call today, Mateo said, from Seattle. They're making a documentary about the case. Want to interview us? Pass. That's what I said, he smiled, though they're offering a lot of money. Don't care. Some stories don't need retelling. Agreed. They walked, held hands. Normal, boring, perfect. That night after dinner, Sienna cooked, didn't burn it, counted as personal growth. Maya did homework while they cleaned up. Mom? Maya's voice. She'd started calling Sienna that 3 months ago. Still made Sienna's heart stop every time. Yeah? Can Mr. Cruz move in? Like officially? Because he's here every night anyway, and it seems dumb to pay for 2 apartments. Sienna glanced at Mateo, raised an eyebrow. He shrugged. Kid has a point. That's not how decisions work. There's logistics, financial planning. We'd need to discuss. Mom, do you want him to move in or not? Simple question, complicated answer. Or maybe simple answer, complicated by overthinking. Yes, Sienna said. I do. Cool, can I have ice cream now? Finish your homework first. Deal. Maya went back to math. Mateo moved closer, wrapped his arms around Sienna from behind, kissed her neck. You sure about this? He whispered. Might get messy. Life's messy. We're good at messy. We survive messy. Different thing. Then we'll learn. She turned, kissed him properly. Together. Outside, Vancouver rain fell. Inside, life continued. Normal, complicated, real. They'd survived the impossible. Now they were living the ordinary. And somehow, the ordinary felt like the bigger victory. 2 years after the verdict, Sienna got a call that changed everything. Ms. Vance, this is Andrea Chen. I'm a producer for 60 Minutes. We're doing a retrospective on corporate corruption. Your case is central. We'd like you to participate. Not interested. We're interviewing Maya, with her permission and yours as legal guardian. She wants to tell her story, show people what speaking truth cost her, and what it won. Sienna's heart stopped. Maya wants to do this? She does, but only if you and Mr. Cruz participate. She says it's your story too. Sienna looked across the room. Mateo was cooking dinner. Terrible at it. Smoke alarm would probably go off soon. Maya was setting the table. Normal family routines. Let me call you back. She hung up. Told them about the offer. Maya's eyes lit up. Can we do it? Please? I want people to know what happened. Want them to understand that telling the truth matters even when it's scary. It'll bring everything back, Sienna warned. Media attention, questions, people recognizing you. I'm not scared anymore. They already took everything. I survived. That's the story I want to tell. Mateo stirred pasta. It's your call, Maya, but once you tell it, you can't take it back. I don't want to take it back. I want people to know corporations can't just kill people and get away with it, that kids matter, that we won. She looked at them both. We did win, right? Yeah, Sienna said. We won. Then let's tell everyone. The interview happened 3 weeks later. Professional crew, lights, cameras, questions that dug deep. Maya was brilliant, poised, explained what she'd seen, what she'd survived, why she'd refused to stay quiet. Mateo was honest, talked about promises and sacrifice and the cost of doing right when systems fail. Sienna was clinical, presented facts, evidence, the documented conspiracy that had tried to kill them and failed. When it aired 6 weeks later, it broke records. Most watched episode in years. Public outcry, legislative hearings, corporate accountability measures. Maya's face, no longer disguised, became a symbol for whistleblower protection. The night it aired, they watched together. 3 people on a couch in a small Canadian apartment. When it ended, Maya spoke. Do you think my dad saw it, wherever he is? Yeah, Mateo said. I think he did, and I think he's proud as hell. Me too. Maya leaned against Sienna. Thanks for not quitting, even when it was scary. Thanks for being brave, Sienna said. For taking pictures, for telling truth. Someone had to. Yeah, someone did. They sat there, family forged from crisis, surviving peace, building futures from wreckage. The credits rolled. The screen went dark. Outside, Vancouver night settled in, and 3 people who'd refused to die quietly lived their beautifully ordinary life. Loud, messy, real. Theirs. 5 years after the verdict, Sienna stood in the Oregon cabin one last time. They were selling it. Mateo had decided. Too many ghosts. Too many memories that felt heavy instead of hopeful. But before the sale closed, they'd come back. One weekend, one last goodbye. Maya, 16 now, planning for college, thinking about law school, brave as ever, walked the forest paths. Mateo made coffee on the wood stove. Sienna stood at the window watching dawn break over trees. You okay? Mateo asked. Yeah, just remembering. Good memories or bad? Both, which I guess means they're real. She turned. You sure about selling? Yeah, it served its purpose, kept us alive, but we don't need it anymore. Someone else might, someone else running from something terrible, finding safety here. That's poetic. I have my moments. They drank coffee, watched sunrise paint the forest gold. Maya came back, cheeks flushed from cold, eyes bright. I found the tree, she said. The one we hid in. It's still there, still standing. Course it is, Mateo said. Trees outlast everything. Like family? Exactly like family. They spent the day hiking, visiting the beach, the stream where they'd drunk chemical-treated water and survived, the ravine where they'd slept on ground hard as concrete, all the places that had tried to kill them and failed. At sunset, they stood at the cabin door one last time. Should we say something? Maya asked. Like a blessing? I'm not good at blessings, Sienna said. Try anyway, Sienna thought. Then, thank you for keeping us alive when we should have died. Thank you for teaching us that survival is a choice you make every day. Thank you for giving us time to become family. That's perfect, Maya whispered. Mateo locked the door, put the key in his pocket. They walked to the car. Behind them, the cabin stood silent, witness to survival, monument to stubborn refusal to quit. They drove away, toward the airport, toward Vancouver, toward lives they'd built from ashes and hope and each other. In the rearview mirror, the cabin disappeared into trees, gone, but its lessons remained. Survival was a choice. Family was worth fighting for. Truth mattered even when it cost everything. Simple lessons, hard-won, true. They drove through Oregon rain toward whatever came next. Three people who'd survived the impossible, who'd won the unwinnable, who'd built something beautiful from terror and chaos. The ocean roared behind them, the highway stretched ahead, and somewhere between past and future, they lived. Messy, complicated, beautiful, real, together.